What's happening, perfectionists? My name is Russell Holiday. This is the Nothing is Perfect podcast, and today we have two guests for you. We're going to start off with my chat with the Blueline Hockey. He is a hockey YouTuber. We're going to chat about his thoughts on the Canucks' new look front office and coaching staff. We're going to go through the Canucks offseason so far when it comes to the draft, trades, prospects, free agency. We're also going to get into the changing landscape of offer sheets and whether or not Connor Bedard is cursed. And as well, we will get his take on what the best case scenario is for the Vancouver Canucks to make it back to the playoffs. We're also going to have the Silver Fox on. Mr. Dustin Boydell will be here. We're going to chat about all the latest Canucks news, including the hiring of Manny Malhotra's coaching staff, the Canucks season's opener and home opener being announced, Finn becoming a possible member of the Mascot Hall of Fame, and talking about Steve Yzerman being out, the Canucks ECHL affiliate changing, Mantha signing, and a possible Quit Hughes extension and what that could mean for the Minnesota Wild. But first, we will start off, as I mentioned, with the Blueline Hockey. Enjoy. Here we are, the man who has just over 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's up to 74 videos and 3.5 million views. Go and check out his channel if you haven't done it yet. This is the Blueline Hockey. Welcome to the Nothing is Perfect podcast, sir.
Thanks, Ross. It's always good to be back.
So how's the summer been? What you've been up to since the Canucks offseason is a long one this year?
Yeah, it's going to feel like that for the next few years, of course. So buckle up, everyone. It's going to be a long rebuild, especially if the Sedins are the ones that are involved this time. They've made it very clear. But as for myself, finished up school in May, got another semester coming up, and just been taking it easy. I find enjoyment in reading again. So those for everyone who's listening and has been to college, everything that you read that your professor is prescribing you, it makes you hate ever picking up a text. But I've been able to find some enjoyment in fiction.
Yeah, my wife was an English major at university, so she went through the same experience of, no, I don't want to read anymore because someone's been forcing me to read Chaucer.
Yeah, it's like a PTSD kind of thing.
Eventually, you can get back to Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and all that, so don't worry, kids.
Yeah, I just picked up 1984 by George Orwell. That one's alarming, to say the least. 4 chapters in. I don't know if I want to keep going. I don't know if this is how I want to spend summer.
Yeah, it's kind of prophetic in a lot of ways for anyone who hasn't read that one yet.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting my summer to lead into nihilism, but let's talk hockey. Cheer me up again, you know.
Well, hopefully you got some cheery thoughts. The Canucks' new front office doing the most Canuck thing ever. We've got co-presidents. They got Ryan Johnson there. Manny Malhotra got the job. Jordan Smith is his assistant, right? So a lot of internal hires. How are you feeling right now about the state of the Vancouver Canucks front office and coaching staff?
So let's go through it chronologically. When you weren't going to have the Sedins and anyone else, I feel like it was going to be the Sedins and Ryan Johnson. It wasn't going to be Sedins and Evan Gold. I think before they hired Johnson, I was slightly leaning towards Gold because of the analytics profile. But then you also have to understand that there's more than just one way of building a hockey team. Evan Gold, obviously, they lean more towards the analytics side. Ryan Johnson's been in this organization and he's shown that he's an incredible evaluator of talent and he knows how to develop young players into NHLers, but also into solid professionals. So the Canucks decided to go the route of good scouting, talent evaluation, player personnel, They hired Darren Hermiston as well. Excellent hire, according to everyone that knows him. And they're going to draft and develop. And obviously, they're building out their analytics department. But I think if you have guys and people, some people on Reddit are critical of Todd Harvey, but I really like how he's been able to find those gems in the later rounds, particularly Kirill Kudryavtsev. If you get an NHLer out of a 7th round pick, you're laughing to the bank. And it's not just him. He's been in charge since 2022. The Canucks haven't given him a lot of the volume because they've been trading away a lot of picks, trying to make up for past mistakes like Ilya Mikheyev. But I'm very confident moving forward that they're going to be able to draft the types of players that are going to fit right into Manny Malhotra system. They're going to fit into how Ryan Johnson wants them to play. And I'm glad that they went with Johnson over Gold. But also I'm really happy they went with Sedins. Because of the community building aspect. Growing up, I fell in love with the Canucks when Brian Burke was a GM. And in one of my videos, I talk about how he was the one that told the Vancouver Canucks, or ownership at the time, that if you're going to hire me, this team has to be number one in the league when it comes to community involvement. And I've been proud as a Canucks fan to see that come back. Because as a kid, it was everywhere. Canucks for Kids Hospice. It was a core part of what it meant to be a Canuck. So starting at the top, Sedins, super happy that they're involved in the vision and the philosophy of what it means to be a Canuck. I'm glad they're not making roster decisions because I don't know if that's where their strength lies. I think they're better in player development, but also philosophy. The reason I say that is they were the ones that gave OEL the stamp of approval to Jim Benning for being the president. And then Ryan Johnson, excellent hire. And yeah, Matt Malhotra's coach. Rookie coach, and I'm a little bit concerned that they didn't get him some NHL experience on the bench, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. I think the point that I always was thinking about, because a lot of people, I even made a joke with my buddy there, like John Tortorella's available, I'll only bring him as an assistant, right? That would have been funny to have him help out Manny Malhotra. I don't know if he'd obviously do it, but somebody along those lines who's been a head coach before. But at the end of the day, this team, like you mentioned off the top, this team, it's not supposed to be good in the next couple of years. So why not let this young coaching staff learn on the fly, just like a lot of these players will be?
Yeah, and I wanted to just add to the whole it's scarce price all over Reddit. Everyone's talking about, even Drowns from the Athletic. It's kind of not bare bones, but it seems like they're trying to keep the payroll down. And part of me wonders if the Canucks want to take the next step. Let's say they develop all these players, the Novotnys, the Malhotras, the Coots, and the Rogowskis of the world, and they get back to the playoffs, right? Let's say they get back to where like Montreal is. Can they take the next step and win a cup with this ownership, with how much they're penny pinching, right? Or will that increased revenue from the playoffs and also selling tickets? Maybe you get the first overall, you get Landon Dupont. If you get Landon Dupont, you're selling out of season tickets overnight. So things like that, I do worry, like, can they win a cup with ownership if they're going to penny pinch further down the line when they really need to start investing? I wonder about that. But also the cap is rising every year by like $10 million, which means the cap floor is rising, which is kind of the justification that the ownership is using right now to increase season ticket prices, even though they're the worst team in the league. So part of me is slightly concerned about that, but I think once they start making more revenue, they'll spend it where they need to. And but the point I was trying to make was, at that point, do they sell the team?
Yeah, we had Sapster on the podcast a couple weeks back, and that's the theory he's been running with, is that once the salary cap gets to a level where they are having a hard time even hitting the cap floor, then essentially the Aquilini family will have no choice other than to sell this team because they won't even be able to function at the lowest levels.
Yeah, they need to go. Like, I mean, they've needed to go for a while. And I think I actually, I don't think it's a naivety this time. And the reason I say that is because the Sedins have so much pull in this city that they're not going to let Aquilini sort of rush things, right? Kind of like how the Dowdy, remember how Dowdy and Kopitar forced LA to rush their rebuild, and now they're kind of like in the middle of the pack and no one really knows what they are. I don't think the Sedins will ever let Aquilini interfere and say, you have to make this move for this player and blah, blah, blah. But so that's why I don't think I'm naive to think that this rebuild is going to work, but also Ryan Johnson's vision. I haven't talked about the draft on my channel, and if we have a couple minutes to talk about it.
The next thing I was going to ask you about. You're on it. So the Canucks draft, right? They ended up with 9 picks. They traded one away to get another pick for next year with Toronto, moving from the 6th round to the 5th round. But other than that, I mean, what was your overall thoughts on the Canucks draft class and how they did?
Okay. Ryan Johnson went to Todd Harvey, the director of scouting for the Canucks, and said, we want guys with size and we want guys who can skate. So when they took Rogalski, there were a lot of names on the board. Rogalski had 42 points. People online weren't sure about that pick. They didn't feel like it was the sexiest pick, even though the guy was 6'7", 240 pounds. But you can't look at that pick individually. You have to look at it in a vacuum. Malhotra, 6'3", Novotny, 6'1". This guy's 6'7". Okay, what are they trying to do here? They're obviously trying to draft dudes who are big, but these guys also have very high hockey IQs, and they can skate and they can shoot the puck. So what the Canucks are doing is, we're not going to take the guy that has 90 points but can't play both sides of the ice. We're not going to take the guy that, has a super high ceiling, but his floor is literally, he may not even make it to the NHL. They looked at these players, they scouted them individually, and they said, these guys have high floors. They're probably going to play in the NHL. Let's figure out what our system is going to be, and let's find guys in the draft we can plug into that system. I don't like what this is a different sport, but Seattle Seahawks, they knew what type of defensive system they wanted to play. And in their first draft, they got I don't remember exactly who it was, but it was in one single draft, they got Chancellor, Russell Wilson, and I think Earl Thomas. I can't remember exactly. They got an F for that draft, but then they ended up winning the Super Bowl a couple of years later because they had a system in mind, and they picked players who were likely to play in the league, and they plugged them into the system. And that's what the Canucks are doing. They want guys who can play on both sides of the rink. They don't have much NHL caliber talent, so they're drafting high floor guys that are going to actually help them out in their roster. And they're going to play 200-foot hockey, structured hockey. They're going to have guys who can shoot. They're going to have guys with size. They're going to have guys who are going to play well along the walls. And they want guys who can win the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, you can't win the playoffs if you don't have size. So I really like this draft strategy. All you have to do is just get Todd Harvey a lot of volume. Mm-hmm. Under Rutherford and Alvin, he was only picking 5, 6, or I think the most picks he had was under those guys 7 or 8, maybe. I don't remember the exact number.
That was 7 in 2023.
Okay, so that was his second draft in charge. He's shown the ability to, like I said earlier, find you for drafts, find you. Sawyer Medio might be a depth defender, and he was a 4th round pick. Gabe Sharrock got contract out of prospect camp, and he was a 6th rounder. Ty Mueller, he looks like he has an opportunity to be a long-term NHLer. DP was a 3rd rounder. I think Riley Patterson has a really good chance of being an NHLer as well. Mm-hmm. But there's one name that I think Canucks fans need to keep an eye on. And you're not going to see him in any of Drance's rankings or the Canucks Army's rankings of top 10, top 20 just yet. 2025 7th round pick, Matt Lansing. So this is a guy who kind of just came out of nowhere, right? And yeah, he wasn't the Ryan Johnson pick. He was the last pick of Rutherford and Alvin. I think he had like 10 points in 14 games in the USHL on one team, and on another team he had like 17 points in 40 games. It was not really a very inspiring statistical profile. He goes to Quinnipiac, and he puts up a half a point per game as a true freshman, as an 18-year-old on one of the best teams in the NCAA in his conference. That is pretty bullish for him to earn an NHL contract by the time he's 22 years old after his senior season. So he's a guy that I would really keep an eye on. He reminds me a lot of Adam Got Dead. Mm-hmm. But if the Canucks handle this guy's development properly and don't rush him, then I feel like he could be like a bottom 6, piece, which again, I know that's not super sexy, but guess what? You get a guy like that in the 7th round, that's a really positive indicator of how good your talent evaluation is. And you get a guy like that in the 7th, get a couple like guys like that in the 3rd or 4th round, and that could really help build out your organizational depth. And that's something that is pretty exciting about this management group is the drafting, I feel like. Now they just got to get those picks. They just got to shed guys like DeBrusk, shed the Linus Carlsons, shed Drew O'Connor, and give more volume to Todd Hardy to work with, because this guy can do wonders for the organization.
We mentioned getting more picks. The Canucks have made some free agency signings, some trades as well, bringing in guys that could potentially bring in more draft capital. You got Gallagher coming in via trade. You got Alexiak signing. You got Luke Schenn signing. These are all guys that potentially could also be turned into draft picks, depending on where this team is at coming up to the trade deadline this year. How did you feel about the trade for Gallagher, and what are your thoughts on the signings of the 2 big defensemen on the back end to help out the young guys?
The start with Gallagher, I was kind of hoping that they would get like a mid-round pick, but they got a 3rd for Hoglander, which is okay, although it's down the line. I like the Gallagher pickup. One thing that Alvin and Rutherford did not understand was locker room dynamics, like at all. Which, did Rutherford play in the NHL?
He did, yeah. He was a goalie.
It was probably so long ago. Like, Alvin definitely didn't, and just bringing in guys like Evander Kane, but also there's rumors that they were the ones behind telling JT Miller to, get after Pettersson and whatnot to try to light a fire under his behind. Things like that. They didn't understand. They understood how to build a roster, but they didn't understand how to build a team. And that's what's exciting about, again, Johnson, is when he was talking in his press conference about role definition. It's like, okay, this guy's going to be the veteran who helps our younger guys. This guy is going to be the guy. Let's forget, for a second, on ice roles. Like, they probably have a role for everyone in the locker room. Like, well, this guy will be the DJ before the game. He plays the music, or this guy is like the dad of the group and he'll organize team dinners, or this guy will help. This guy's job is to help out the young guys when they're feeling sad or upset about something, or this guy can be a mediator between a coach and players, because they're not always going to see eye to eye, right? So that's one thing I really like. They're defining roles on this. And that's what Gallagher is. He's one of those guys who's going to be a culture carrier, leader, and he hasn't even played a game for this organization, which is incredible. I love the Luke Schenn signing. let's go back a few years actually to Chris Tanev leaving and how much of an impact that had on that locker room, right? Will those issues in the locker room between Pettersson and Miller happen if Chris Tanev was there? I don't know. Right? That's a good question to ponder. So good culture carrier guys. I don't care much about obviously winning and losing. So I don't care that they didn't go out and sign Anthony Mantha although I do like that contract that Devil signed to him today. I feel like the Canucks could have offered him about that much, $5 million over 2 years, and then tried to flip him. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, he probably wanted like no trade protection and New Jersey. I didn't look at the details of the contract, but let's forget about that. I feel like Paul Cotter was a good signing. I didn't really know much about him, and it's pretty crazy. Like fourth line left winger, $2 million. Inflation is crazy. Because it's not just we're a few years removed from Tim Schaller getting paid $1.8 million as a fourth line center, and people thought he was overpaid by like $800,000 for that. And now you have guys like Paul Cotter making $2 million, which is crazy. That was a good signing. Alexiak, great signing. I think they hit that one out of the park. And all these guys you can, except Shen. Shen has a no trade, so but I think he'll be willing to waive it because he's a team player. But then again, it's like, is it worth the 5th round pick that you're gonna get for him? I don't know. We'll see. So
if it's a good situation for Shen, I mean, I wouldn't see any trouble like him going to some team like a Colorado Avalanche or something that it would have to be a team that definitely has a chance to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, but Shen already has a cup, so it's not like he's desperate or anything like that. But he is that kind of team player that I think even if you can bring in, like, what did they get for Shen and Stanley last year? What did they get? Like, it was a couple picks when they traded them to Buffalo, right? So any draft capital you can bring in, even like you saw this year when the Canucks traded their 6th round pick and made it into a 5th round pick. You can do your EA Sports NHL thing where you combine picks and try and move up in the draft here and there too.
Yeah. He won a cup in Tampa, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he may not be too incentivized or inclined to make a run at another cup, but I don't know him personally, obviously, so I don't know what his situation is on that front. But I want to go back to the draft for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
You were saying collecting picks, and so I talked about how the Canucks are drafting players for a system. So they're drafting high floor guys that have certain attributes that. So Carolina has an interesting strategy, and I saw Drance talking about how the Canucks should try to emulate that strategy, but I actually disagree with him respectfully. Is he wants the Canucks to accumulate value and then swing for the fences and try to get like the Jackson Blakes or the Nikishins. But Carolina makes a lot of picks every year, and they miss on like most of them. And the Canucks aren't in that position where they can afford to miss on a lot of their picks. They need NHLers. And I kind of think it's better that, let's say you have Carolina and over 2 years they have 20 picks and Vancouver has 20 picks. If they draft well and they get 7, 8 NHLers out of it, and Carolina makes the same 20 picks and they get, they're swinging for the fences, so they'll get like 3 or 4 maybe. Kind of like, I think it's better to get those 7 to 8 NHLers and then hope or develop them to the best of their capabilities, and then a couple of them will probably become stars, right? So that's why I think I prefer the Canucks strategy right now, just high floor, high character, 2-way players, and because it's easy to go out there and look at. Let's use Nikolai Goldobin as an example. He was the 1st round pick of the San Jose Sharks, 92 points, but he flamed out because he couldn't play 2-way hockey. It's easy to look at his numbers and be like, oh, let's take these guys who have really high statistical profiles. But then it's it's difficult to make the decision. You know what? We're going to take the guy who had 42 points in Luke Gazdic, and we're going to develop him into a third line center. It's not as sexy and it's not as easy to sell to your fan base, but again, he can play both sides of the ice. He's going to, at the very least, if he's not going to put up points, he's not going to cost you in your own zone. So, and guys like that have value in the NHL. So I like their draft strategy. And I think the next 2 years, I want to see them make 25 picks. They're allotted 14 picks. I want to see them pick up 9 extra picks and make those picks. But they can't do what Yzerman did. There's a reason he is not the GM of Detroit anymore as of today. In Yzerman's first 2 years, he had 23 picks, and I think he only got like 3 or 4 NHLers. He had 6 second-rounders, and all he got out of that was Albert Johansson, who's like below replacement level, and he's going to be out of the league, I feel like, in a few years. Shockingly poor drafting. But if the Canucks have 25 picks in the next 2 years, I think they'll be a juggernaut by like 2030.
Do you kind of draw any comparison between like Steve Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings? Like you said, it almost seems in a lot of ways like they try and play it safe. And then Seattle Kraken, kind of the same thing, where the joke going around right now, the Seattle Kraken are a team completely comprised of middle 6 forwards. So I think, would you say that you have to find some kind of balance to take some swings sometimes? Because Detroit had a chance to get Hughes at the draft, and Detroit had a chance to get Hughes as a trade, and they failed both times. Is there at some point you have to say, okay, now we got to go for it, but you got to wait for that moment?
From a Canucks perspective?
Yeah.
I think their first priority, obviously, is let's fix the culture, right? But let's say 2029, 2030, they start, showing signs of life. Whoever they draft in the next few years, plus Coots and Malhotra, Bume, Vilander, maybe a guy like Alexei Medvedev is like stealing you games, or Dmitry Yevchenko, they're the top goalie prospects. I think their strategy right now, and that's why they were comfortable having the first round pick for Marcus Pettersson in 2030, but also 2029 for Niels Höglander, the third. Their strategy is let's accumulate the next couple of years. Let's make those picks. I don't think they're going to be trading picks in the next couple of years at all. I don't think they're going to make what Montreal did is let's trade a couple picks for Newhook. Let's trade a couple picks for Doc. They did that really early in their rebuild. I don't think the Canucks will be doing any of that. And then there is going to be a point where it's like, we're probably going to make the playoffs this year, whether that's 2030 or 2031. And they're going to have to look at all those pieces that they've accumulated and decide, is it worth it for us to move these pieces and acquire a top 6 forward or a top 4 right side defenseman, or shore up our bottom 6 and try to make a run this year in the playoffs? That day's going to come. It's inevitable when you're rebuilding, unless you're the Chicago Blackhawks. Actually, that day came way too early for the Blackhawks, right? So that day is going to come, and they're going to have to make moves and get veterans who can take you over the hump, because Montreal realized it. So they went out and got Noah Dobson. They passed on Robert Thomas, which was smart. And I think San Jose rushed it too, going out and getting Nurse, going out and getting Jacob Trouba, to 2 of the worst contracts in the league. I like the Kesselring move, but I'm not sure about those other 2 moves. We talked earlier about LA. LA rushed it. Mm-hmm. I think the Canucks need to be very careful identifying where they are, not letting ownership meddle, and then priming that perfectly. It's like, okay, we have our young core, and these guys are killers. Like, it's kind of like, remember Chicago in 2009 when they had Kane, Taves, they had Keith, Seabrook, Versteeg, Ladd, all these guys. Mm-hmm. and they took Detroit to the third round. And then they went out and got Hossa, and he took their team to another level. So the Canucks need to know where they are in the rebuild, because let's say they somehow fluke it in like 2 years, and they're kind of like how Calgary was last year and barely missed the playoffs because of St. Louis. Let's say that happens somehow. They can't get overly excited and just assume that, oh, the rebuild's over, let's start making these types of moves. That's what they have to be careful of. But 4 years down the line, if it's clear that they're in a playoff position and there's some guys available at the deadline, that's when you pull the trigger and make the moves. Or the offseason, of course.
So I wanted to pick your brain on a couple of different things that's happened in the offseason around the league. Obviously, one of the huge things that occurred was Carlson being offer-sheeted by the Philadelphia Flyers, $18 million a year AAV for 5 years. Anaheim did eventually match that offer, but they have now kind of put themselves into a situation where Cutter Gauthier also requires a contract and was their highest scoring player last year. Do you think this kind of offer sheet is becoming more commonplace moving forward, as there are some new GMs coming to the league? You even saw the New Jersey Devils GM Sonny Mehta making an offer sheet to Hayton. Offer sheets used to be such a faux pas. It was such a, an old boys league. All these guys were friends. But with these two contract offers going out and being signed, do you think that that's going to alter the way that these GMs are interacting when it comes to offer sheets?
So I think, even as a fan, though, every GM, I'm not a GM, but I feel this way too, should be angry at Danny Briere for what he did. Like, Leo Carlson shouldn't be the guy setting the market. You saw what Celebrini said. Celebrini came out and said that, I'm going to take a cut to help out the team. He needs a contract next season. Bedard needs a contract this offseason. Those are the two guys that should have been setting the market. Briere is just not only screwed over himself, because guess what? He's going to have to sign Michkov next year. Michkov's going to be like, you were giving Carlson 18. Why can't you give me, if he has a big year, he's going to be like, give me 18 or 20. If he has a 70, 80 point year, he can be like, give me 15, 16. So Briere wasn't thinking that far ahead, I feel like. He's, in a way, he's reset the market in the worst possible way, I feel like. And I feel like GMs should be like upset with what he did. Cause like it should have been Celebrini signing next year for like 17, 18, and then everyone else comes under that, because it's literally Celebrini, McDavid, Draisaitl. Those are the guys that can command, McKinnon, that kind of money, right? So Briere really handcuffed a lot of teams around the league. The offer sheet, with the cap going up, and Barrett Hayton got one as well, is going to continue. I feel like for a while, we didn't really see them until the Holloway and Broberg situation. But I think, I really hope the Canucks can lock up Hume, and Wielander is going to need a contract in 2 years.
Yeah. Ogren's up this summer too, or it can be extended this summer too.
Yeah. So, and it's frustrating because I don't think it was ever realistic to get Hume under the 8x8. Mm-hmm. But after you look at the Bowen Byram contract, 12.5 by whatever it was, I think if you get Hume, I think I'd be happy to get it at 10 if he, hits his projections. But that's a contract that, if Hume has a monster year next year, it could climb to like 13, 14, which obviously you give him that because you hope he's going to be your number one defenseman moving forward. And he was really highly regarded coming out of the University of Denver. He had more points in both of his seasons than Quinn Hughes did, which again is not the number one indicator, like I mentioned earlier, of whether or not you're going to put up points in the NHL. But yeah, like the closer it is to 10, the better. But I'm starting to think the Hume's contract's not going to be under 10. If you get him at 9, that'll be solid. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You look at what Montreal's done; they've locked up their whole core essentially for the next 8 years. They're all under $10 million. You've got the other team, the Carolina Hurricanes, that have just won the Stanley Cup, and they took that risk with their young guys and signed them at the long-term deal so that they can go out and do things they need to do when they need to when it comes to signing some other people. So if you take those examples and then throw on top of it the offer sheets that could fly towards the Canucks for Boehm and Ogren next summer, I think it's all the more reason for these two guys to get signed up to some kind of an extension before this season gets started, right?
I'm not super concerned about Ogren because his profile is much different. Yeah, his ceiling is he could be like a guy who like a 30-goal scoring winger, right? And then but at the same time, I think he's going to be like a middle six guy. So I'm not too concerned about them going out and signing him to like a $4 million by X amount of things, or sorry, X amount of years. But I think they need to be careful as the season goes along to maybe start reaching out to their agents, because if you get to the end of the season and they both had really, really good years, then your price tag is just going to go up, right? So
Connor Bedard, is he cursed because he's got another shoulder injury? He's going to be out for 4 months, and they just signed Byram, like you mentioned, to that fat contract. And Chicago, like you mentioned, maybe seems like they're kind of trying to accelerate out of this rebuild. San Jose doing the same thing. Is the GM there just fighting for his job at this point with how he seems like he's fumbled this whole Connor Bedard entry-level contract?
yeah, I think ownership is putting pressure on. I didn't like how they did their rebuild to begin with. They got rid of anyone who had any value whatsoever. Like Kane walked, obviously, but like Hagel, the Brinkhead, they just tore it down to the studs, and it's incredibly difficult to go from that to back to the NHL. It doesn't matter how many picks you accumulate and how many first rounders you make, right? But also just because you make 9 first round picks in like 4 years doesn't mean you have a good hockey team, right? They got lucky with Bedard, obviously, but is Oliver Moore or Sam Rinzel? Who else have they, like Vlash? Are these guys they're going to move the needle and get you back in the playoffs? I don't know. So Chicago being bad brings me joy just because of the bad blood from like 2009 all the way to like 2013, but also just like the way they handled a lot of things in the last decade or so. Like I hope this misery continues for them until like the 2040s, which is possible because they didn't rebuild the right way, in my opinion. When they're drafting players with high volume, good statistical profiles, but it's like, how do we want to play as a team, right? I don't see any of that, and yeah, now they're rushing it, and they're going to go the way of. They'll be lucky if they go the way that the LA Kings. The Kings at least have like 4 or 5 playoff appearances, where Byram's not going to get that team to the playoffs, especially when you're missing Bedard. Like the Canucks are going to be competing with them for the last 32nd place in the league. So, and San Jose rushed it too, I feel like, but they're lucky to have, Macklin Celebrini. He's like a nuclear weapon, but watch out for Michael Misa. He's going to be a stud too. So it seems like in a way they're following the Edmonton Oilers model of you got your Bedard and your Draisaitl, and that's going to be Misa and Celebrini, and then Will Smith is kind of going to be like their Zach Hyman, I guess. But they got Darnell Nurse, so who knows what's going to happen with that team moving forward. I do think they're going to be scary once they get to the playoffs, but are they going to have enough? right? We'll see.
So best case scenario for the Canucks, you're thinking the next time this team plays in the playoffs, 2030, 2031, somewhere in there?
If yeah, if it gets accelerated somehow by like drafting Landon Dupont, or let's say next year they get Alexis Joseph and he's like a stud out of the gate, by 2029, that'll be Dupont or Alexis Joseph sophomore season. Malhotra will probably be in the lineup, plus Coots, Novotny, Bium, Vilander. I'm not saying 2029 that they should be aiming to make the playoffs, but let's just say it's accelerated by a DuPont-like talent. They could be competing for a playoff spot by 2029. I don't think that's the route they should take, but 2030 they should be competitive, well-structured, organized. They should have a team identity by then. Let's forget playoffs. They should have an identity of how they want to play and what it means to be a Canuck by 2030. And they should be aiming to be in the playoffs around 2031 for sure. That's the 5-year mark. But 2030, I'll take it. But it all depends on lottery luck, how these players develop. It also depends on drafting luck as well. So that comes down to like a guy like Todd Harvey. You know, maybe he can find you the next Braden Point in the 3rd round. That's another thing that can accelerate a rebuild, right? So Montreal's rebuild was accelerated because it took Lane Hudson in the 2nd round. So if they hit on like mid-round picks, 2030 would be good, but 2031 is what they should aim at.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to revisit this next summer once we get another year under our belts, see what they can do. But yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you with Todd Harvey. I'm very confident in what he's been doing. Once he got the reins directly from Jim Benning and was able to do his thing, you look back at their drafts since then, and there is a lot of pieces that look like there's potential there to play NHL games out of the 4th round, out of the 7th round. So late round picks that could make an impact on this roster in some sense. So, and that's huge for this organization moving forward. It's just some prospect depth.
Yeah. Also, people criticize him for I have started criticizing him for making the Willander pick, but also a Lekkermaki pick. But what people fail to understand is like the 1st round pick is normally made by the GM. The rest from the 2nd round onwards to the 7th is made by what's his face, the scouting director and the scouting team. So I think the Lekkermaki pick, if he doesn't pan out, is more on like Patrick Alvin, and the Vilander pick. I don't know. I don't know where this criticism of the Vilander pick began. It started with Durant, and I'm going to disagree with him again. It's like Zach Benson had a good playoff run. Congratulations, but he hasn't really proven throughout the regular season that he's like a top line fixture. So let's pump the brakes a little bit and give the Vilander some time to develop and become something before we can like say that the Canucks made a mistake on that pick. So yeah.
So on your channel, the Blueline Hockey, your most recent videos, you have the Forgotten Canadian Super Team. Your most recent video also, the strange true story of Sundin's stint with the Vancouver Canucks. Anything else the viewers and listeners need to know about the Blueline Hockey on YouTube coming up this summer?
Yeah, so I took a break for a while when I was in school, and I won't be posting much until August because I'm switching back to on-camera content. So I'll be doing my season previews for teams that I'm doing the Canucks for sure. Probably do a preview for the Oilers, Habs, just teams that like are always full of drama and like fun stuff. So I'll be doing my season previews in August, and I probably won't be doing a video essay or like a mini doc for a while. But yeah, subscribe, keep an eye out, and I'll share my 2 cents.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. You got a soccer game to watch. Who are you taking in today's game?
I got England.
England versus
Yeah.
Spain. Then it would be for the final for the World Cup. That would be lots of fun. I don't know. Argentina seems like they might be killers, but we'll have to wait and see.
I have my concerns with Argentina. Let's just say that.
Awesome, brother. Enjoy the game, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
All right, thanks for having me on. Have fun this summer.
You know him as your favorite professional pair golfer. You also know him as the one and only Silver Fox here, one half of the Rusty and Dusty Sideshow. It is Mr. Dustin Boydell. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Good morning, as usual. Happy Wednesday. Hope your week's going well so far. Congratulations on cracking the 2,400 mark. As I look at the screen here, I see we've crested 2,401 subscribers, so gained 6 since last week. So that's good news. Obviously, summertime a little bit slow. So
yeah, shout out to the Nuck creators. Yeah, Nuckhead and Canucksland both got me some subscribers this week, so it's great to see.
Exactly. So there you go. Putting in the work in the off season, right? That's how you stay sharp. That's what we're hoping for the Canucks, right? Like that's the same thing.
The news trickles in just like the subscribers here on Nothing is Perfect. So I'll never forget. I remember Steve Dangle put out a video, and for anyone who is a YouTuber or content creator, he showed his subscriber counts over the course of his 11 years or whatever he's been doing it for. No, he's probably at like almost 20 years or some nonsense. But it's that kind of thing where most of the time it's a trickle, and then every once in a while, boom, you get a whole bunch of subscribers. But if you're feeling a little down on your subscriber count, don't worry. Just keep on working. That's what counts. Just put out the videos and they will come.
Consistency is one thing that you hear all streamers or content creators talk about is having that consistent stream of content. You have to stay kind of nose to the grindstone. Even on the days you might not feel like streaming or putting out a video, you still got to get up and do it if you want to do it for a living. And I mean, we obviously do it as a side hobby, but it has taken up pretty much all of my hobby time, and I'm okay with that because I absolutely love it. So, obviously we just wait weekly for some news to happen. Luckily, our pal Ryan Johnson likes to wait till right after we finish recording to announce things, so we have something to talk about the next week. What should we talk about first, Russ? You want to let the people know what we're doing this week?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. A bunch of Canucks news today. So we've got the Canucks coaching staff filled out for Manny Malhotra's team. They've just announced the season opener and the home opener like we talked about last week. They'll have the full schedule out tomorrow, which will be July the 16th, 2026. A couple rumors flying around about potential people who want to come and play for the Canucks. ECHL news coming up, Bid and Lipka today. And then just some roundup around the league for a couple different things, some rumors and some actual news that came up. And of course, let's start off. I wasn't going to do this, but Finn the mascot is up for the Mascot Hall of Fame. So there will be a link in the description. It is a fan voting thing. So you can vote twice a day. It runs all the way until July 26th. So let's get Finn the mascot into the Mascot Hall of Fame, because who doesn't love that man, that crazy orca running around biting people on the face?
Absolutely. I mean, it's important to support not only our Canucks players, but every part of the organization. And Finn, it's not an easy job being a mascot. It is a thankless job. You don't get to have a voice, right? Like, it's puppeteering, basically. It's essentially miming at the highest level. So it's hard. You got to have a personality, be animated, and Finn is a great mascot, always at every event. I'm always there having a great time with the kids. So well deserved. Let's get him in the Hall of Fame just in time to maybe change him to something else because we'll hopefully go to the skate forever. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get Finn in the Hall of Fame. It'd be nice to have a Canucks mascot be recognized.
Yeah, well deserving. He's had an illustrious career. I think he was at his 1,000th game last season or something like that. So good for
impressive.
Finn. Canucks coaching staff, probably the more important news that we should be talking about. So the announcement did come out from the Vancouver Canucks. Ryan Johnson announcing 4 new hires for Manny Malhotra's coaching staff in one Jordan Smith, Ryan Mojanel, Jason Krog, and Andrew Shaw. Not that Andrew Shaw. It's another Andrew Shaw. Not Chicago Blackhawks Andrew Shaw, just to be clear.
Don't panic, Canucks fans. It's not that Andrew Shaw.
So let's start off with Jordan Smith, because I think no. Let's not start off there. Let's start off with the overall reaction, Dustin, for the 4 members of this team. What were your initial thoughts when you saw the announcement for these 4 names coming into Manny Malhotra's team?
The first thing I thought was, what a great play bringing in the AHL Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. Someone who's hungry to make the jump to the NHL level, but clearly didn't see a path within his own organization and moved into a role where he can get some NHL bench experience and taking an assistant coaching role. I think that's really good because they did show some great offensive numbers in the regular season. I know they didn't have a very good playoff, but playoffs in the AHL, they can go so quickly with the first couple of series being shortened. You can lose 2 games and you're out. So I don't take too much stock into how well a team did because I don't know if they had injury issues or anything like that. I'm not well versed in the Providence Bruins deep data, but what I did see from Munganel's coaching is that it's responsible, it's fast-paced, high tempo, and everyone finishes their checks. So it kind of ticked all the boxes of the type of person they wanted, helping these young players develop, and clearly a good teacher. That was something that Ryan Johnson and Manny Malhotra said they were going to highly value in this process. We all know, well, you and I know Jordan Smith well, given what he was doing with the defensive prospects. I mean, the fact that Kirill Kudryavtsev got a freaking look in the NHL this year over and above some of our other defensive prospects to make that leap. That's all Jordan Smith and his defensive coaching down in the AHL. To the month he worked with Tom Verlander to take him from a guy who we were like, oh boy, he might need a year in the AHL. Worked with him for 2 months. Injury issues, had to get called up. But in those 2 months he spent with Jordan Smith, it turned him from an NCAA project to a viable NHL defenseman so fast. And because he has that relationship with those defenders already, for me, it was a no-brainer to kind of promote him with Manny and continue that relationship and culture it with those young players, because that's the idea of this rebuild. I like the idea of building a coaching staff that will build with the team, and they're trying to reset this culture. I know there's the reaction that it's a money play and they're trying to save dollars. And yeah, maybe they are. But at the same time, what have you and I been harping on the last couple of years and begging them not to do? Recycle voices and recycle coaches. And the last thing you want to do is when you have an up-and-comer who's, not to say like a guy who's going to control the room, but he's going to delegate well. And you don't want someone who's been there overstepping and stepping on Manny's toes in his first attempt at an NHL coaching job when he's worked so hard at the AHL level to become a champion coach. I think it's great to have young guys that are hungry to build a winner together, and they all have this goal that they're working towards. I think it's incredible, the culture shift that we're going to feel so quickly. The second we see training camp and fans get their eyes on the way these guys will work as a team, as a coaching team with the players, it's going to be incredible. And then obviously we have Jason Krog, who was working as a skating and development coach with the Abbotsford Canucks as well. So internal organization guy getting a promotion, kind of making the same shift that Yogi made when Talkett was here. Took him from that position, made him an assistant coach. So you and I kind of talked offline a bit through messaging what we thought the roles would be. Jordan Smith, likely no-brainer as the defensive coach. Munganell makes sense to be the offensive guy, and then having Jason Krog, the special teams guy, whose focus is skating and position. When you have him kind of helping with the special teams, power play and penalty kill, probably is a big thing that he'll be in charge of. I think you got a really solid group here that people don't really know what to expect because they don't know a lot about these guys. Luckily, you and I watched so much AHL. We know plenty about Jordan Smith. We see the skating progress that prospects who have had that knock on their draft board, like, oh, their skating needs work. Every prospect we've seen, their skating has improved in Abbotsford so far. And that likely goes to Jason Krog working with them. So I'm pretty excited. And then Andrew Shaw getting a promotion from being a head video coach down in Abbotsford, getting an upgrade to the NHL level, being an assistant video coach up here. So yeah, just all good things. It does look like money saving things, but at the same time, it speaks to the culture that Ryan Johnson wants to build. And it's like, well, we've cultured these people this far. Why wouldn't we promote from within? That's something that's always confused me about the NHL is you have a farm team for players. Makes sense to farm team a coach and promote from within. Most successful companies don't go outside their company and promote and hire a new CEO and have immediate success. There's going to be some growing pains. And that seems to kind of be what happens when you go out and get external coaches or things like that. So I'm excited to see what they can do because it's going to be different than anything we've experienced as fans.
Yeah. Nobody can say anything about Jordan Smith's development ability. Look at, for a good example of a guy who took a step back under Adam Foote, which we saw a lot of, and Elias Pettersson had a tough go with that new system. And how did they get his season back on track last year? Send him back down to Abbotsford, give him a little bit of time back with his defensive coach in Jordan Smith, and all of a sudden, GPD started looking a lot more like GPD towards the end of the year as a result of just having a couple weeks spent with Jordan Smith back down there in the AHL. So Jordan Smith, absolutely love the hiring. He has, like you said, already been working with all these guys. So many good young defensemen that have been working so well. And then even just with all the signings we talked about recently, right? Like keeping Jack Thompson, keeping Cole Clayton, all these guys who have really flourished when working with Jordan Smith. That's a very good sign. Yeah. And as we know, sometimes the hardest thing to do in this league is to develop good defensemen because it is a very complicated position, especially these days. They're not only responsible for the defensive side of things, they're also expected to be play drivers and offensive creators, which is something that you didn't necessarily see back in the day, even going back 10, 20 years. So great to see Jordan Smith to get that promotion. Absolutely deserved. And I would say to anyone who says, well, we didn't bring in blah, blah, blah. We needed outside guys. We needed experience. Like you said, if you have a good person in your organization, you cannot give them the short end of the stick as a result of, oh, well, we needed someone else, right? Do we want to lose Manny Malhotra to someone else? Do we want to lose Jordan Smith to somebody else? No. And then the other point, why does anyone care? People keep on saying how bad the Vancouver Canucks are going to be in the next couple of years anyways. So maybe you should just pick your lane. Maybe we want to be bad. Maybe that's the whole point. And it's not necessarily that they want to be bad, but if they are bad, this is the perfect time to have these coaches learning on the fly and getting to know the systems and getting to know the NHL and how to coach in a higher league. So for me, the hirings for this coaching staff, yet again, as we keep on saying, another tidy piece of work from Mr. RJ, Mr. Ryan Johnson, as he keeps on bringing good people into this organization, and I'm here for it.
Well, and I think you're starting to see the culture shift. And as much as people have, fans and public have screamed for a culture shift within the organization, I think there needs to be a culture shift outside the organization, fan-wise, and things like that, because there are some old voices that are stuck in that old hockey culture that think that the answer is bringing in a John Tortorella or doing what Edmonton did and bringing in a Mike Babcock. I don't ever see that being the answer in the new age of the NHL in the way the new player is. Will some players still respond to that style of coaching? Absolutely. Um, John Tortorella still is a great coach. You don't get a lot of players speaking poorly about him. He just doesn't like the media, and that's John Tortorella. Whereas you get a lot of bad stories about Mike Babcock, and then there was what's his face, Bill Peterson, or Bill, I think it was Bill Peterson.
Yeah.
The former Flames and Carolina head coach. Some horror stories about just physical abuse from that guy. So do you really want that being your new culture? You're just recycling. And so it's just asking for more of the same thing. But everyone was so excited when we finally are buying into a rebuild, and it's going to be slow and take time. And it's just this, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, I mean, you can try, but it usually ends poorly.
The other thing, just looking at track record for RJ, all the coaches that he's been hiring to run the AHL affiliate in the Utica Comets and the Vancouver Canucks, Ryan Johnson was the GM there in Utica from 2020 to 2017, 2018. And then he was obviously running the Abbey Canucks from 2017, 2018, all the way on until he got hired up here. You look at Jeff Ulmer, Trent Cull, Travis Green, Nolan Baumgartner, Jason King. These are all guys that were hires by Ryan Johnson. They are all now coaching the NHL. So if you're looking at a decade of work from Ryan Johnson and his ability to find talented coaches that are going to be able to make their steps in the NHL, he has that proven track record. So you have to give Ryan Johnson the benefit of the doubt that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to taking these guys that he hires in the AHL, because he sees something in them and he sees that they have the ability to progress. Because not only has he been able to develop talent when it comes to his players, he also clearly has the ability to develop talent when it comes to his coaching ranks too. So I'm absolutely on board with everything that Ryan Johnson has been doing with this team so far and its coaching staff. Canucks season opener has been announced. It is going to be September 29th in Edmonton. So they'll be opening on the road this year against the Edmonton Oilers. It is a back-to-back. They'll also be playing their home opener on October the 1st against the same Edmonton Oilers. Exciting times to get to see our Alberta rivals back-to-back. I think it was the same thing last year, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Only it was flipped, I believe. Edmonton was here first and we went there. Yeah, the 1 day travel in between, it'd be good. Get that rivalry back going with Connor McDavid and crew over there. Obviously, still question marks with what we will see from these Edmonton Oilers. A Mike Babcock coached Oilers. Maybe a bit disjointed coming out of the gate. But it's going to be exciting stuff. I'm just excited to get to that point. I can't believe the regular season starts in September with the 84 game schedule. So with all the changes that are being made, I know there's going to be more exciting changes throughout the summer with this organization. And it's just get me to NHL hockey, because I'm so I don't know if I'm more excited to watch the team or more excited for you and me to be like, see it? Do you see it? This is what we've been telling you. Because it's hard when you're a small voice in the content area of the Canucks um, content, and it'd be nice to have a little validation down the road,
Well, it's nice even with the schedule coming out. It's going to be an 84 game schedule. So if you haven't heard that, it will be the beginning of the 84 game schedule. So they'll be releasing the full thing as of tomorrow, which, like I said, was Thursday, July the 16th, 2026. They've already announced the preseason schedule. So preseason hockey is getting started early as well, obviously. It is a shortened schedule as well. So there's going to be 4-game preseason. So hit the ground running. They're got their first preseason game against the Seattle Kraken down in Seattle. It's going to be September the 19th. Then they're in Calgary on the 22nd. Then they're in Edmonton on the 24th. Back in Vancouver for the 26th against the Seattle Kraken. So 2 games against the Seattle Kraken. Plus they'll have the showcase for the prospects against that, which I assume will be happening the weekend before that. So you're looking at, it'll be like September the 12th. We're probably looking at, they haven't announced the date, but I'm just extrapolating here. So we're looking at now, it is the 15th of July, August, September. We are now 2 months away from some form of the Vancouver Canucks being on the ice playing, and it'll be fun to see the upgrades to our prospect pool when they get started in that weekend against the Seattle Kraken's prospects. So anything you're thinking about for the Edmonton Oilers having to play the Canucks back to back? Is it kind of like a lose-lose situation for the Oilers? Because they're expected to win both those games. So even if they win, it will mean nothing for them. And if they lose one or both of them, is that like panic button hit off right off the bat for them?
I'm sure it will be for their fans. I think they need to understand they're going to take a step back, going with a coach that's going to have such a drastically different way of operating than Chris Knobloch. But we'll probably beat them up. Like, we're bigger, stronger, meaner this year. And when you look at Edmonton and the changes they made, I mean, they kind of got rid of their meanness. Darnell Nurse is gone, and he was one of the guys that would stand up for teammates. You got Trent Frederick, but with the amount you pay him, you want him on the ice, not in the penalty box. So I'm not sure what to expect. But one thing I am the most excited about is for fans to see how different Victor Mancini will play under the coaching of Jordan Smith versus the coaching of Adam Foote. I know people have been extremely disappointed in his development, but every time he went back down to Abbotsford, the guy was an absolute stud because of the structure and the coaching. And so I think that people are going to be most shocked when they see Mancini coming into this season.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm very excited to get the full schedule tomorrow too. So next week on the podcast, what we'll do is we're going to go through and look at some of the key dates that will be happening on that 84 game schedule. Obviously, we'll be looking for the first return of Quinn Hughes to the arena. We'll be looking at some of our old favorites too, like Mr. Kiefer Sherwood coming back, that kind of thing too. So we'll break down some of the key dates for you next week on the podcast, where we will have the full schedule to get our teeth into. So that should be very good. Couple of rumors started on the internet in the last couple of days. One coming from a very legitimate source, friend of the show, Ben Lipka, talking about the affiliation with the Canucks and the Kalamazoo Wings. So when the Vancouver Canucks announced their affiliation with Kalamazoo, it was a 2-year deal. So that is up right now. So Ben Lipka tweeted out yesterday, one thing to watch for later this month is what's happening with the Abbotsford Canucks and their ECHL affiliation. The 2-year deal with the Kalamazoo Wings has expired, and last time an agreement was announced was at the end of July. So coming up pretty close, probably within the next couple weeks. Canucks may be looking to share a team in 2026. probably not a huge alteration to what they were doing last year in that, yes, the Kalamazoo Wings did get their sick flying skate jerseys, and we're jealous of that. But there was probably only, 3 or 4 Canucks prospects even playing in Kalamazoo this last year?
Yeah.
At the
no,
most.
100%. Yeah, and it's pretty common. You even see it in the AHL. Like players get loaned to other teams in the AHL, right? Like they'll go play for a different affiliate, but they belong to the Vancouver Canucks. We've seen players in our organization that's happened. I think probably 4 or 5 years ago. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you probably want something closer to Abbotsford than Kalamazoo. So I'm sure they are working. There's something probably in the works. Obviously, just another thing on the list for Ryan Johnson when it comes to all the honey-do list that he inherited. When it came to after promoting Manny, now obviously needs to help his Abbotsford GM look for some coaching staff down there because all that's left is Harry Mahesh and Justin Pogge. So lots of things to do. This is pretty far down the list, given that, like you said, only 4 or 5 of our prospects played there, and you could very easily loan them to other organizations. So yeah, unfortunate, probably for the city of Kalamazoo, but a good chance for the Canucks to get some of those prospects closer to home.
Yeah, there's a couple of more Western teams that are in the ECHL. There's the Iowa Heartlanders would probably be a good one. They're about as far west as you can get. There's also a California team in the Tahoe Knights, which would also be a possibility. So you never know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, like Ben Lipka said, the announcement came at the end of July last time they made the announcement. So that should be coming up. And we will keep you apprised because we did follow the Kalamazoo Wings at the very end, and they were defeated by former Canuck Josh Bloom in the playoffs, which is
yes, they were
the Canucks the most Canucks way to lose a playoff series against a former team or former player. So other rumors that were coming out, there was a bunch of people talking about this. Elliot Friedman was talking about the fact that the Canucks and the Seattle Kraken were working on some kind of a deal for Shane Wright. Shane Wright hasn't really panned out for that organization, despite having a really good first year with the organization. Last couple of years, maybe not used properly, playing on the 3rd and 4th line, has not been playing up the potential of a 4th overall pick. Apparently, the asking price was far too high. We're talking about a Zeev Buium or a Vilander, which I say, hell no. There's no way you're getting that. DeBrusque, sure.
Hell no.
Right? But now, more news coming out from Ben Kuzma of the province. And he put out an article about the fact that Shane Wright apparently prefers Vancouver as a destination for a new start, for a fresh start. And one of the reasons for that would be the fact that the Canucks are at the very beginning of a rebuild. And within the next couple of years, he is in a position that he could be a big part of that team if they use him properly. And he sees it as an opportunity to prove the Seattle Kraken wrong and the Montreal Canadiens after his deaths there at the draft. So Shane Wright, do you see him as a fit for this team moving forward? And is it really dependent just on the price that they would have to pay for him?
It's God, it's so difficult. You gotta start the season with Petey. Because if you make the move for Shane Wright, that really screws up your centers, right? If you don't move one out, if you don't move Rossi out or someone like that, because he's going to play either line 1 or line 2. There's also the possibility you move Petey to the wing then, and you have a big physical centerman that can facilitate, getting to the middle. I do agree he was utilized incorrectly in Seattle. I think he was seen as the put on a pedestal kind of as the future of the Seattle organization. He was their first draft pick, out of the expansion draft. He was asked to do a lot, very young. Played 8 games as an 18-year-old in the NHL, then played another 8 the following year. But did really well at AHL when he was utilized as a first-line center, right? And he was captain of 2 Team Canada teams. So, there's leadership there. A change of scenery for him would probably be great, but you can't give up everything. You can't give up what you're trying to do right now because you have made some great strides with some prospects. Our defensive depth is exactly where I think it needs to be right now. A good mixture of right-hand shot, left-hand shot, veteran, youth. I think we're in such a good spot there. You don't want to give any of that up to bring in an issue sorting out who's going to play center, especially when you just went out and drafted Caleb Malhotra. And you have Braden Coots, Riley Patterson, all these centermen, Atu Ratu, who's likely going to get, way more ice time this season under Manny Malhotra. You have Ilya Safonov, who's going to be trying to push for an NHL bottom 6 role as a centerman, right? Like, we have way too many centermen vying for NHL jobs to make this move right now. I get people licking their lips, and I think Ben Kuzma shouldn't have used the term alpha male. I think that term has run its course. I think what he was trying to get across is that he's a leader. He wants to win. He works hard. He's that sort of thing because he was a captain, right? He was slapped with the C lots of times in his junior career. And so, do I think it'd be a great addition at some point in time? Yeah. But do I think right now? No. I think we got to start with what we got. We got to maybe move. We're more focused on acquiring wingers. And also, I get Shane Wright saying, I want to be in Vancouver because I like where the rebuild's going. That's code for I want to be there because I'm going to get to be the number 1 center. Like, that's literally all he's saying. So, I don't know. I think right now there's a lot of reporters grasping at straws. I think these are outside sources. I don't think it's the Canucks generating any of this. When Friedman comes and says, they're working on a deal with the Canucks, it's because Shane Wright's agent is probably phoning Ryan Johnson trying to figure out, hey, would you guys be interested? And then with the price being what it is, RJ probably hangs up.
I know. There is something to be said, though, for the Canucks as an organization to just add more centers, right? We look at Philip Hedl. He's probably not someone you want to rely on, even as a 4th-line center. Maybe you move him over the wing. There's also something to be said for having Pettersson as a winger as well. One of his best seasons was playing with JT Miller, where they essentially interchanged each other depending on what they were doing on the ice, having both centers playing on a single line together. That was one of Petey's best seasons. So I can see some merit in bringing him in.
Shot.
And he's a right-hand shot,
right-hand shot,
6
right?
foot
So,
tall.
that's a big thing.
He's a thick boy too, right? 6 foot, 192 pounds. He almost scored 20 goals in the 24-25 season. But I think for me, I think he could be a good fit moving forward. And I think obviously having him on the team would guarantee Braden Coots starts in the AHL, which I'm a big proponent of. But it all comes down to price, right?
Yes.
I'm not giving up any top end prospects. If you're looking at some kind of a package that is a DeBrusk, because Seattle could probably use some help on their power play. Last year in the NHL, they were 20% on the power play. They couldn't really get things going. That's 20th in the league, so they were in the bottom third of the league. And Jake DeBrusk, all he does is score power play goals, so he might be a good addition to that net front presence down there in Seattle. Patrick Allvin maybe does like DeBrusk more than some. He is the one who signed him to that extension deal. So, man, it could be interesting. But yeah, nothing. I'm none of the prospects, right? It's you're not giving up prospects. You're giving up maybe picks, maybe DeBrusque. But
I you know what? I'd maybe consider giving up the conditional pick we got off New York, right? Because I mean, he is a top 4 draft pick. He's a top 5 draft pick. He's been underutilized. I do think he's 22 years old, right? People think he's older because he's played so much NHL time, but he was thrust into a role that he wasn't ready for. Kraken didn't have a development stream, so he didn't like the Coachella Firebirds took time. Like they were great because they had Shane Wright and they had all these young prospects because of the expansion draft. But then when he got thrown into the NHL, he didn't really get the opportunity to go the right path. He didn't have, years and years of an organization working to develop these young players. It was just kind of like bounce up and down, back to junior, play in the playoffs for Coachella. And then it was turmoil for this kid for the first 3 years of his career. And year 4, not great. 74 games, only 27 points, but being utilized as a third line center. And that's like putting Jonathan Lecker-Mackey on the third line. They're not effective. It's not what their skill set is, and it's just being coached wrong. And so, yeah, like I did say that I'd be okay with it, but it's the price that I'm hung up on. I'm not okay giving up Vilander or someone like that. I'm okay giving up Lecker-Mackey because you're getting a right-hand shot for a right-hand shot. And, there are question marks about Lecker-Mackey. Do I think he's going to do way better if he has Manny coaching at the NHL level because he'll be utilized properly? Yes. Was he starting to engage more in board battles late in the season? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The shoulder likely hindered his want to do that. And so hopefully he comes back healthy and he's ready to go. But yeah, all we can do is speculate about the price. I know that Ryan Johnson won't give up anything that will jeopardize the rebuild or the direction that they're going. I'm sure it will involve Manny going through hours of film before they make any decision whatsoever. Because I think any player they bring in, there's going to be a large collaboration between Manny and Ryan. There's never going to be a time where he's just going to pull the carpet out from underneath him.
Yeah. We will wait and see. No rush on the Canucks side. I think the Seattle Kraken might be the more desperate side in this deal. So that would bode well for the Vancouver Canucks if something happens moving forward. Steve Yzerman sent out to pasture. He is now going to be some kind of a senior advisor. He has not been able to get the Yzer plan to work in Detroit. Never able to get in the pieces that have put them over the top. The Detroit Red Wings went from being pretty much a shoo-in to make the playoffs every single year. They have not made the playoffs. I think it's been 7 seasons. They missed out on Quinn Hughes as a draft pick. They missed out on Quinn Hughes as a trade. These are all things that have probably kept them where they're at in the mushy middle as their rebuild has been going on for far too long now. And then the latest news out of Detroit, obviously, their captain asking to be traded, giving a very short list, too, of teams he's willing to be traded to. Probably the final straw there for Steve Yzerman. Are you surprised by this move, or is it just kind of what you expected to see?
I think when he was essentially defiant to the Larkin request was the final straw. Yzerman operates on a respect basis and is kind of one of those old school guys. Yeah, he's a former player, but he's an old time hockey player. Like when you watched Yzerman play hockey, he played hockey. I think he was limited by the new age NHL and how difficult it is to trade pieces in and out. Coming into the Detroit situation was a lot different than the Tampa Bay situation. He wasn't coming into drafting a Steven Stamkos or having a young Steven Stamkos ready to go. He was limited in the amount of draft picks he had and had to recoup some of those early in some trades because, like you said, Detroit was always making the playoffs. And the way you continue to do that is you move pieces out and bring in NHL ready players. And the pieces you have to move out are usually draft picks. I think he'll be fine as an advisor, and he will likely get offers as a GM elsewhere because he is a smart guy. He understands the game very well. He knows how to build a hockey team. But when you're limited with no trade clauses and cap issues and limited assets to move, makes your job pretty tough.
Seems like a lot of the stuff they were doing lately down there in Detroit were a little bit of the desperation moves when it comes to like the trade deadline, giving up some pretty big assets when it came to bringing in some not so great pieces on the defensive side of things. So,
yes.
Yeah. Kind of similar to what I think we're seeing from Davidson in in Chicago now, where yeah, some of these deals, giving up some pretty big
Chris
pieces.
Drury in New York.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing some desperation, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's hockey moves and then there's save your ass moves.
Yeah. Another signing today, Anthony Mantha signs, so he will be playing next year in the NHL once again. He was kind of one of those pieces, and we mentioned Mr. DeBrusk a little bit earlier. There is, Patrick Kane still available, Marcus Johansson, Tarasenko, Tolvanen, Bunting, Van Riemsdyk, Evander Kane. Those are kind of the pieces that are still out there when it comes to forwards and left wings, right wings, centers. Anthony Mantha signing a deal today, so he will be playing with the New Jersey Devils. 31 years old, 6'5", big boy. Another piece out of the free agent market that was already very, very weak. We have not seen DeBrusk get moved, but as we mentioned earlier in the podcast a couple weeks ago, these are the kind of pieces that probably have to go off the table before DeBrusk get moved. We're probably still, if DeBrusk gets traded, we're probably still looking at, it'll probably be a later, like August or, early September sort of thing, you think?
Yeah, it could be a situation if someone gets injured in the summer and a team gets desperate, or a team missed out on Anthony Mantha in depth scoring, and now they're going to go out and ring and call Ryan Johnson. Mantha coming off a career year in goals with 33. Granted, he was playing a lot of time with Sidney Crosby, so that always helps. He's pretty good at getting the puck to people, last I checked. Can that translate to New Jersey? I know they were hoping more for a right-hand shot guy to play with Bratt and Jack Hughes. So Mantha doesn't really fit that bill.
He does play both sides, though. So he
does play both sides. So he can play the right wing, but I feel like Bratt needs a right-hand shot guy out there to help facilitate his offense. So I don't know how it'll work, but I'm sure they're going to try anything because, like you said, the winger market is very, very slim.
Patrick Kane back to Chicago? You never
or
know,
Buffalo,
right?
apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently, rumor has it, according to former Chicago Blackhawk Chris Chelios, saying that Kane is mulling between his hometown Buffalo and the longtime Chicago Blackhawk player, thinking about maybe going back there to retire as a Blackhawk. So we'll see what happens with the Patrick Kane saga, and obviously keeping a close eye on the other Kane, Evander, still unsigned as well.
I hear the KHL is calling, so you never know. I'm sure you can get more money over there right now.
Oh my goodness.
So the other rumor that has been floating about is, and you mentioned it last week when when you talked about the sound heard around the league when Bill Guerin's butthole closed up, seeing that $18 million offer sheet go out for Karlsson, because one Quinn Hughes is available to be extended right now. And with Kaprizov already making $17 million a year, right? You got Karlsson now making $18 million a year. If they're lucky, they get Hughes for 17, I guess. But at this point, it might even be more.
The starting number is Kaprizov's contract.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the starting number. The contract that really screws Guerin is the $12.5 million that Bowen Byram got. He's the highest paid defenseman in the NHL as of right now. So when you compare his stat line and skill set to Quinn Hughes' stat line and skill set, that's like, I'm being drastic here, but that's like comparing Kiefer Sherwood to Sidney Crosby. Like, that's a pretty, because there's so few defensemen in the league, that's a pretty broad difference between Bowen Byram, who has never played higher than a number 4 guy, and he's the highest paid defenseman. And you got Norris Trophy winning elite offensive defenseman Quinn Hughes on this side. I mean, if I'm his agent, I'm thinking that number starts with a 2 for market value. And so that's where Guerin's difficulty lies, because are you going to then tie up $37 million in Quinn Hughes and Kaprizov? Yeah, the cap's going up, but that leaves you pretty thin when it comes to the rest of your assets.
Yeah, they still don't have a second line center there in Minnesota. And it makes me remember the old line.
They had one.
Yeah, and they traded him to us. Well, it's the old line. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, right? And you look back to the Parise and Suter signing, which happened years ago. $98 million matching deals over 13 years before they adjusted. But still, they were making $7.53 million each, which is at the time just under 11% of the cap. So together, they're making about 22% of the cap when it was at $70 million. In 2026 money, let's say best case scenario for them, Hughes is like, okay, I'll just sign the same as Kaprizov, right? I'll sign a 3-year deal, same as Kaprizov. That walks me into free agency at the same time as my brother, Jack Hughes. That is 32%, almost 33% of the cap together, which is 12% more than they were paying for Parise and Suter, which is a crazy deal. Even if you look at next season where the cap goes up again, it's still a full 30% of that cap. So you're looking at a third of your entire roster being taken up by 2 players. And we all know how the core 4 worked out for Toronto. It is not something you can do. There has still never been a player making more than $10 million a year that have won the Stanley Cup. So I love the move of trading Quinn Hughes to Minnesota. I said it when it happened. Minnesota was the most desperate team out there because they have been a perennial first round exit. They have set the record for most playoff appearances exiting in the first round in professional sports history in North America. It's absolutely insane. So congratulations, you got to the second round this year and then immediately got dumped out. But if you sign Quinn Hughes to this extension, which would then kick in the 2027 season, 30% of your cap, good luck trying to find anything else to surround those 2 guys with.
And you're already up against it. Right? They only have 1.2 million in cap space right now. You know, you go ahead to next year, 27, 28. Yeah, 45 million. So there is some coming off the books, but that means they're losing a lot of players next year. When you look at their UFAs, Ryan Hartman, Blake Coleman, Nico Sturm, and then they have RFAs, some young guys. Like you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You can't like, oh boy. And the hard thing is like Quinn Hughes only signs a deal for 17 million if he thinks they're going to win. right? Like what if a team that has crazy cap space going into the future, Philadelphia, Chicago, Columbus. I mean, probably not Columbus, but like Philadelphia, who's kind of on the cusp of breaking through. Rick Tocchet's there. Here's $21 million, Quinn. Come play for Rick. Right? They don't really have any defensive prospects when you look at them. So, I mean, they went out and signed Nolan Foote this year as depth. So I could see them going after him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If Quit Hughes doesn't sign an extension before the season starts, it will be very interesting to see if Bill Guerin makes a hard choice to then flip Quinn Hughes for some kind of a package to bring somebody else in to support this team, because he didn't even end up being their best defenseman last year, right?
You have to flip him at the deadline. If you don't think he's re-signing, I mean, you have to get him out of here, and that's what Rutherford did. Right? Like you have to recoup some assets for that player.
Yeah, it'll be. I think best case scenario for Bill Guerin is because of that contract I mentioned. Jack Hughes is signed for 3 more years in New Jersey, so I could honestly see Quit Hughes signing a 3-year deal, $20 million. That's your best case scenario, I think, for Bill Guerin. But it's not a good look either way to spend that much cap, like we've said, on just 2 players on your roster.
Well, especially because how are you going to add enough in those 3 years to get over the hump to being a contender for the cup? You know what I mean? Like you just sent out your physical shutdown D-man in Jake Middleton, who was also offensively gifted because he had a huge shot. You sent him out for Blake Coleman. That's not going to solve your issues being a winner. You need that defensive guy in Middleton also there to protect the young guys. So I don't know what the hell Guerin's doing, but he's going to be in. I'm glad I'm not him.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in our position with the assets we recouped for Quinn Hughes, honestly.
GM of the year, Bill Guerin.
Yep.
Oh, it's hilarious. Dustin, thank you very much for joining us today on this episode of the Nothing is Perfect podcast. Is there anything that you want to say to the viewers and the listeners before we finish up for the day?
It's my absolute pleasure, as always, to join you for the podcast. Hopefully we get some news this week, maybe on the Abbotsford Canucks coaching staff, maybe a Jake DeBrusk trade. Who knows? I'm sure as soon as we sign off here in a couple hours, they'll announce something. So
Jessica Campbell signs as the AHL head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks, the first female head coach in the history.
Internet? Yeah. I'd be excited for her. I'd be really happy.
Part of me still wants her for the Golden Eyes, and I can see why that would be a good fit for her too. But either way, I want Jessica Campbell in the city, working for one of the hockey teams that we cover here on Nothing is Perfect.
For sure. And she has to just weigh it personally. Is it a regression to go coach in the PWHL or go to the AHL as a head coach? Or do you want to be part of the growth of the PWHL and lead a team like the Vancouver Golden Eyes to, a championship? It's tough, right? It depends on what her career path wants to be. So, but as for everyone else out there, thank you for listening. As always, you guys are the best. Leave your comments down below if you have any questions or have anything you want Russ and I to cover. There's 31 other teams in the NHL we're happy to talk about, other players. Just let us know. Share the podcast on all the platforms. Like, subscribe. We're climbing slowly, trying to get to that 2,500 mark. Now over the 2,400, so we'll start counting down to the next major milestone. And hope everyone enjoys their week, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Nothing is Perfect podcast.
There you have it. The Silver Fox, Mr. Dustin Boydell, signing off. Thank you very much, everyone out there, for viewing and listening to this podcast today. We'll be back next week for another episode. It'll be episode 8. And we're looking forward to finding out when the Vancouver Canucks will be playing. Their 84 game schedule should be a lot of fun. We will be live this year again for every single one of all 84 games of the Vancouver Canucks season. So make sure, if you haven't done it yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because we have you covered with everything that you need to know. Pre-games, post-games, intermission guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you're on board and ready for Prospects Showdown, preseason, and all 84 games for the Vancouver Canucks next season. Thank you very much for sticking with us here to the end. And as I always say, remember, I'm Russell Holiday. This is Nothing is Perfect. And make sure that you make good choices.
Nothing is perfect.